Oh boy, I am not looking forward to the comments I'm gonna get based on the title of this video. Anyway, my name is Hector. I am a long-term challenger player whose goal these days is to play and study low ELO to help the average player like you climb a little bit easier. I try to figure out solutions for the most annoying issues only low ELO players face, like ADCs who have to deal with enchanter support standing 50 yards away the whole laning phase. Or what do you do as a mid laner when your jungler starts dragon while there's a massive wave at your tower? The issues are endless, like one day you'll get home early from work and hear strange sounds in the bedroom. You go in and see your girlfriend has secretly been a top lane main behind your back for years. These are real issues and my goal is to help you get through them. Now when it comes to solo queue, the answer to almost every problem you've got almost always boils down to the same thing. The enemy team is just as bad as your own teammates, so you can exploit them to 1v9 every game if you're good enough. But this is a bit misleading, because even challenger players can't always 1v5 the enemy team. I can have 23 kills and 10 CS per minute, but if you send 4 Emerald players against me, it's a bit hard to do much on my own. In a game like League, you can't literally 1v5 the enemy team if your own allies aren't at least somewhat useful, right? Which is why I genuinely do try to make sure my teammates are okay throughout the game. If they're in a bad lane state or they're struggling, I might often go help them out sometimes. It's much easier to win if your entire team is doing well, obviously. On the flip side, and I don't mean to be rude here, but when my low elo teammates try to help me out, it can be pretty frustrating at times. Often when they're trying to help me, they're actually hurting our chances of winning, and it's not their fault, it's just that no one has taught them how to be a good teammate, because everyone, including me, is always telling you to ignore your team in every solo queue guide. But there is an interesting thing I've noticed. Challenger players are actually very helpful towards their teams, even if they don't do it on purpose, which is why no one teaches it. You see, every good player in this game is extremely arrogant and believes that all the resources on the map should belong to them. But that selfishness is actually what makes us such good teammates. The simplest way to explain it would be the whole airplane mask thing. You know how they tell you to put a mask on yourself before you help others? To explain what low elo players do is that while I'm putting the mask on myself, they're also trying to put one on me, so we both end up suffocating. It's a bit counterintuitive, but if you find that your teams always feel like they suck, they're not doing anything, or they're a bit hard to work with, then this guide is for you. Being selfish and trying to get as many resources as possible on yourself is the ironic key to having more consistent teammates and to winning more games. But what I'm going to teach you won't work nearly as well if you don't have the good foundation to be a selfish player. You need to know how to be strong and in a position to carry by winning lane first, then how to secure as many resources for yourself on the map after that. Without these important skills, everything I discuss in this video won't be nearly as effective. Thankfully, our courses at Skillcapped are the best in the scene at teaching you exactly what you need to climb fast. We work with challenger players who actually understand what you go through in low elo games and aren't teaching you out of touch macro that only works in high elo. Our courses teach you how to carry from the low elo perspective to actually help you rank up quickly, and we're so confident we offer a 5 division rank up guarantee while actively using Skillcapped, or you get your money back, no questions asked. So if you want to get the most value out of this guide and rank up even faster, then use the discount link below to sign up. Alright, now as a show of hands, how many of you have heard that you should ignore weak members and always play around your strongest teammate? As a smurf, I tend to experience this quite a bit in low elo. Obviously as a smurf, I tend to do well in my games, so my teammates tend to gravitate towards me, they'll give me wards or group up with me and so on, and sometimes we will quickly win the game off of it. This is good advice for a reason, but following the advice to always group with your strong member isn't always correct, and I often find it pretty frustrating when my teammates try to help me, and it's because no one has taught them any better, so let's do that. First, let's cover the difference between direct and indirect help. Everything I'm about to say may sound obvious to some of you at first, but let's just make sure we cover it to make sure you understand where I'm going with it. Direct help is pretty straightforward. You're just directly on your teammate's screen, helping them with a gank or a skirmish or whatever. In this guide, we're going to focus on indirect help, which is when you're doing something on the map that benefits your team in some way without you needing to be near them. Grubs are an example of this. If I take grubs, you will deal more damage to turrets, so you might get a turret plate off of it. Proxying minion waves is an example most of you are probably very familiar with. In this game, my team is losing the map early on. That's why I very purposefully nearly died here trying to get into a proxy position. This baits the enemy Xin Zhao to chase me for a bit. Not only that, but the Katarina sees me inting and also tried to collapse on me. Now my Ryze has priority in mid because Katarina isn't in lane, and he rotated over, allowing my team to make a play in bot lane with a 4v2 advantage. By being a complete idiot, I have indirectly helped my team out, right? There is a major difference between direct and indirect help, and a huge issue I've noticed is that low elo players almost always always default to direct help, which can backfire very hard. For example, this Nami goes to help secure Dragon, completely giving away that Jin Zhao was sneaking it. I honestly had no idea he was on it, but thanks to her, I end up wiping her entire team and getting the Dragon. Thanks. This is a problem most players face. They try to help directly too much, when indirect help can often be way more effective, especially in the first 25 minutes of the game before there's any major objective teamfights. To consistently help your teammates indirectly, all you have to do is understand numbers allocation. This is an easy question. If you and your team group as 5 in mid, what is the enemy team gonna do? They're also going to obviously send 4 to 5 people in mid to defend your siege. In League, players usually try to match the amount of champions in an area with their opponents. If they don't, then the player who is free in that area gets to take a bunch of towers or whatever if it's left unattended. If you think about it, the laning phase is exactly that. 1 top, 1 mid, and 2 bot on each side matching each other's pressure. Which brings me back to why selfish challenger players are extremely good at teamwork. Because every challenger player is greedy and wants solo resources, they tend to spread out on the map, but because they spread out on the map and push in every lane constantly, the enemy team also has to respond to this pressure. By pushing in top lane aggressively, for example, you take pressure off your mid laner, which also lets them push up. And because they're pushing up, the enemy mid can't move to you, so you can keep playing aggro, which enables your mid laner to keep aggro, which enables you to keep playing aggro, and so on. But if just one person were to ease up, then that means the other also has to back off as well. This is very obvious to see in a competitive game. Look how aggressively Gen G is pushing in waves all the time. Rumble, Ashe, and Orianna cannot leave their lanes whatsoever, and Gen G knows that because every lane is pressured, they don't have to worry about being randomly collapsed on. The entirety of T1 is stuck in their lanes right now. They can't just randomly leave and go make a play somewhere as 5. That's just not how it works. Now this might be where you go, okay, that's cool and all, but it's completely pointless. Even if you were to do that yourself, your teammates don't know how, so this back and forth relationship is never going to happen in solo queue. And you're completely right. I'm going to show you the actual low elo experience and what most players tend to do instead. In this Volibear game, let me make it very clear. I'm pretty strong. Anytime I'm left alone in a lane with Aatrox for just 20 seconds or so, he's going to die. He cannot lane versus me whatsoever. My teammates have eyes and they can see this happening, so they're going to follow the play around strong teammates mindset. After killing Aatrox as I'm being collapsed on by multiple players, look at what my Senna and Braum do. They were just hanging out, but then they immediately try to directly help me, but you can see me ping them back. Like I just taught you, indirect help would go a long way here. I don't want them to come towards me. If they just pushed in mid and punished Lucian for randomly leaving his tower, that would help me just as much. A minute or so later, we're gonna see something similar. Because I'm around Otacon, and I'm strong, my team starts gravitating towards me, and I clearly get annoyed. You know, for you guys the viewers, I'm making a point with my camera of how little pressure my team has on the map. Now, it's not always bad to be around your fed member like my teammates are doing, but you want to also think about what being there does to the relative power that both teams can put in that area. Okay, let me simplify that real quick. I'm going to use a scale for a clear visual. As you saw earlier, I'm much stronger than Aatrox alone, so my power relative to his is much higher. My whole rant about number allocation earlier comes into play now. Because my teammates are around me, the enemy team is also going to hover that area, so the power level of everyone here begins to average out, and that makes me weaker because my teammates are not nearly as strong as I am, so my agency goes out the window immediately. This is why League is nuanced, and every decision you make always depends on a ton of factors. I will say though, when your team is winning, you guys can do whatever you want, because if you're really fed, it doesn't hurt your teammate for you to be there. It's not like the power average goes down by being there, because everyone's really strong, so it doesn't really matter what you do. But if you're weak and you're having a bad game, I often advise players to avoid their strong team members. I know when you have a 0-10 Yasuo, it's annoying when they just keep dying on repeat, but honestly, one of my best pieces of advice when you're weak is to actually do that. You want that Yasuo or Yone who's inting to stay far away from you. Honestly, rage splitting is really effective when you're weak. This way, you're at least forcing some of the enemy members away from your strong part of the team, letting them get more from their leads. Or if they ignore you, then you're just just taking waves and towers anyway, while your strong teammates handle themselves even while at a numbers disadvantage. At the very least, I think I'm way more useful here than I would be at a teamfight since I'm so weak. Now back to the Volibear game where I'm strong, you can see my teammates slowly realize that by grouping with me, we're not really getting anything done, so they eventually start going back to mid. But because they had no pressure on the map for so long, the entire enemy team gets to make a free play on me. Okay, there are two different points I want to make here. The first is the point we make in every other skill cap guide. It does not matter that my team sucks. I'm going to carry them anyway. This is the entirety of what our courses teach you. Your teammates are never going to play well. You shouldn't expect them to. You just have to carry them. The second point is the focus of this video. Do not be like these AFK players. If I was a platinum Volibear instead, the game would have been thrown here. The enemy team would kill me, I lose my lead, then they potentially get Otacon, and maybe the game is thrown for no reason. This is why challenger players are just naturally good teammates, even if we're all very selfish. We don't stop pressuring randomly. We're always pushing in a lane aggressively and forcing responses one way or another. If you're genuinely putting a ton of pressure on the map, it's going to be much easier for your teammates to perform thanks to all the indirect help you're giving them. Okay, the annoying part of solo queue, especially in low elo, is that your goal in League should be to pressure as much of the map as possible at all times. The problem is your teammates don't know how to do that, so you often have to fix their mistake for them if possible. So here's some golden rules I follow to make sure we maximize our team-wide pressure at all times, even if your teammates don't really know what they're doing. First things first, a super important rule is to never commit more players on your team than is needed for something. Like I said, you want to pressure as much of the map as possible, so committing 3 or 4 players to a single thing is usually not ideal. Here's an example of what I mean. We just won a teamfight and we're getting Dragon as a reward. Notice how 3 of my teammates are doing it together. And it's not like Singed and Varus are super high DPS champions that really speed up the Dragon. They would be better off spreading out, going back to their respective lanes, and this way they can pressure as much of the map as possible. Kayn can easily solo the Dragon with most of the enemy team dead anyway. Like I mentioned earlier, it often falls on you to try to fix your teammates overcommitting players to one area. Here's a bit of a counterexample. This game, me and my entire team are disgustingly ahead, and I'm pushing top lane to pressure the inhibitor, but my Shyvana comes top as well. This is not a two-man job. Either of us is so strong we could get it solo, and her being here is a waste of time. I know that even 1 versus 2, she's going to get it completely fine on her own, so I should go do something else, which means I go take Krugs in the meantime. Then I head to mid, but my teammates can pressure here without me, so I immediately book it towards bot lane and pressure there instead on my own. This is extremely important. If your teammates are fine, leave them be. They are in your ELO for a reason. I feel like so many players complain about, oh, my teammates always throw yada yada yada. I do not feel that way when I smurf in low elo. Yes, they're sometimes going to grief the game no matter what you do, but I found that this mindset really helps me. If I just trust my teammates, and I trust that they're going to be fine on their own, and I go pressure something else, they'll usually be fine, because I'm putting actual pressure on the map, not just playing babysitting duty the whole game with them. And that brings me to another crucial concept for being an even better teammate: lane takeovers. At this point, I've ranted about pressure for way too long, but keep in mind, your goal is to put as much pressure on the map as possible, and be okay with doing it on your own. Don't commit more people to that area than needed. Okay, that's cool and all, but League often has a bunch of random stuff going on, and you'll find that when you randomly make a play with your team, you will have this awkward moment where you both go, okay, good job, but who's leaving? You don't want to just sit in one lane with your teammates. Someone should go somewhere else most of the time. Here's an actual example to show you what I mean. I randomly rotated bottom to score a kill on Nyla, even though I wasn't really needed there, obviously. But now we've got 4 people in the area. Tarek is a support, so he can do whatever. Nunu can just go back to farming his camps, but between me and Silas, one of us should stay in bot lane to push, and the other should go top lane. The question is who should leave? This could be a wildly complicated answer, based on team comps, game time, power spikes, where the enemy team is, what objectives are up, what summoner spells do we have, and so on. The advice I'm going to give you won't always be correct, but it's going to give you a good idea for what the answer is most of the time. The person who should stay is whoever will have the most immediate pressure, and you can figure that out by whoever is freshest off of a base timer. If you notice, I've spent most of my gold, I'm on a big spike, and I'm full HP and mana. I would personally have so much pressure on this bot lane tower because I'm really ready to fight. On the other hand, Silas is low and he hasn't based. But this brings me back to the problems you have to face in low elo. Unfortunately, it seems like my Silas doesn't want to leave. Remember, you're never going to have cooperative teammates, and it's on you to pick up their slack. I hovered the area for a bit, hoping Silas would leave, but he didn't, and you can even see me leaving a note for you guys to tell you what we should have done. But unfortunately, that's not what's going to happen, and I TP top instead. I just want you to pay attention to what Silas and Tarek do down here in the meantime. You can see they have zero pressure, and they're just walking around aimlessly because Silas is too low to do anything else. That is why I should have stayed bottom. I showed you that because you can't control your teammates, but you can control yourself. So here is the opposite situation. During this teamfight as Rise, we were waiting for our Shen to respawn to ult in and help us win the encounter. Once he comes in, we clean up Riven and Yuumi. It's basically the exact same situation between me and Shen, who should stay top and who should leave. Well, this time it's Shen who's full HP, and he just bought items since he came from base. The problem is I also want to stay top too. I'm still strong and I don't have anything else to do. This is what I mean that I genuinely do try to be a good teammate even to random low elo players that I'm grouped with. I know the Shen isn't smart enough to know that I also want to stay here, so I'll be the one to pick up the slack and I'll do it. I base and go bottom, that way he can keep pressuring top, and now I'll start pressuring bottom so we can maximize our map presence. To finally wrap things up, I'm not saying to never directly help your teammates. Of course, you should follow standard macro rules and rotate to skirmishes and teamfights whenever it's actually relevant. But throughout a ton of the game, you need to stop doubting your teammates' abilities. You don't always need to directly be on their screen to help them. Trust that they're going to be okay on their own, and commit to plays that indirectly benefit everyone and put as much pressure on the map as possible. I found that by following that philosophy, my teammates in low elo usually perform much better. But like I said, this works far more consistently if you know how to pressure properly in the first place, and that's where skill cap can help you further. Our courses will teach you everything you need to know to become a selfish player everyone will want on their team, so use the discount link below to sign up and start climbing. Anyway, see you next time.